tremendous applause for Redeemer hosting us. The Wisconsin 7 started this journey 17 days ago because we want to see climate justice in the state budget. And I have a feeling there's some other people out here today that want to see climate justice. And so if you are one of those people, when I say climate, you say justice. Climate! Justice! Climate! Justice! Climate! Justice! We have a tremendous opportunity right now to see our state make some bold decisions. Now, certainly our state is already facing the threats and the problems of climate change. We've had $100 billion of climate-related disasters in the last 20 years. That is mainly the impacts of colder winters from polar vortexes, mainly the influence of much hotter summer days, and mainly the consequence of changing rainfall patterns, all brought about by climate change. And certainly it's not just in Wisconsin. We see it throughout our country and throughout our world. Our climate is already changing, and it is hurting people. It is hurting our neighbors, and so we need climate justice. Now, we also have gone through this thing called COVID. And it has put a lot of people out of work. It has reminded us of how just deeply unequal our society is. And so not only do we need climate action, but as we take action on climate change, we need to make sure that this action lifts up our neighbors that have been left behind for way too long. And so that's why we say climate justice. So if you want to see both our planet saved from climate change and our neighbors lifted up, let me hear you say climate justice. Climate justice! Climate justice! Now, as a Christian, as someone standing here on the grounds of a church, as a called minister, I'm reminded of what Jesus commanded me to be about and commanded us Christians to be about. Jesus said that we are to love our neighbors as ourselves. To love our neighbors means making sure that each one of our neighbors has a livable future. To love our neighbors means making sure that each one of our neighbors can have a family-sustaining green job. To love our neighbor means making sure that our neighbors and our neighbors' kids and our neighbors' grandkids have clean air to breathe. To love our neighbor means making sure that our neighbors' kids, and our neighbors' grandkids have clean drinking water. And loving our neighbor means making sure that our neighbors have cheap ways to fuel and warm their homes and to have transportation. We can take some big steps in our state budget in all of these ways of neighborly love. So if you want to see a climate justice budget, how about you say climate justice budget? Climate justice budget! Climate justice budget! Climate justice budget!
Climate justice budget! All right.
So with that being said, as words of introduction, I want to invite up our first speaker and our host, the Reverend Dr. Lisa Bates Foyland. She has led Redeemer Lutheran Church in the ways of sustainability in so many ways, and not only has she done that, but she is a dear sibling in Christ. She is the first pastor here in Wisconsin I ever heard preach. And her church was the very first church in Wisconsin that I got to be blessed to worship in. And so I could not be more excited to call up the Reverend Dr. Lisa Bates-Froiland.
Thank you, Jonathan. And first things first, as your host, I would like to let you know that the front doors of the church around the corner there are open, and there is a anybody use restroom to your immediate right, okay? I want to give you another kind of tour of my congregation, and I'm going to start at the ground floor and go up. This is a green tour of Redeemer, okay? So first, you'll see around the corner there, it just looks like a wooden box back there. That is a storm garden, G-U-A-R-D-E-N. It captures all of the rain that falls on those long expanses there, and makes sure that doesn't just go running down the street. And so we start there with water. We go up a little ways. You can barely see that top of that umbrella there? I had lunch up there today. That is our rooftop apiary. That's where we keep honeybees. And urban honeybees do a good job of pollinating. And especially in this neighborhood, there are many, many small gardens that provide perhaps the only fresh vegetables and fruit sources for people living in this near area. Many community gardens as well. Little honeybee, they can go up to 5 miles in order to pollinate. So we hope that we are helping the food sourcing in this neighborhood with our honeybees. It's not just cute, it's not just sweet honey, it's much more than that. And so that's part way up. Now all the way up to the top, you can't see it, but see this big chimney? Behind that chimney there is a solar array of 68 panels. And they are absorbing all these beautiful rays today, thanks be to God. And they are cutting our energy costs by 1/3 to 1/2. But more so than that, this is the justice piece. When I first started working here 10 years ago, I would get out of the car and breathe in, and I would cough. Because the main heating plant was coal-fired at that point in time. And that meant all the people living in this neighborhood were also breathing in a little bit of coal dust all the time. Now they've switched to natural gas by then, but we were making a statement by saying, let's go green now. Let's go green now. Now this isn't a huge congregation here, it's a multi-everything congregation, which gives me great joy. But not a huge congregation, not a wealthy congregation, but when you set your priorities in a certain place, then you bring together the resources, and sometimes you can inspire people to give you a little bit more, and that's how we were able to fund solar panels on the rooftop here. Part of that was the Focus on Energy program. Hey, I think that's in the budget, right? It's in the budget proposal to double the amount of Focus on Energy grants that would be available to places like houses of worship. Do you know a few houses of worship that have a roof on them? I think just about every one of them does. And wouldn't it be great if all of them could have a solar array as well and move us toward the green future that we know is coming? It's just a matter of time and how long. But it's coming. It's going to provide jobs. It's going to make our air clearer and our water safer for everyone. So I think we can all get behind that. Thank you, Jonathan, for bringing the Wisconsin 7 here today, and for all of you for spending a little bit of this glorious afternoon here at Redeemer. Thanks.
All right.
Let's hear it again for Reverend Dr. Lisa Bates-Froiland. And clearly she gets climate justice, so when I say climate, you say justice. Climate!
Justice!
Climate!
Justice!
Climate!
Justice!
All right, our next speaker is one of the originals. When there was just the Wisconsin 1, he was willing to offer blessings and encouragement to head down to Kenosha and give a word of encouragement to me. And so he's always a co-conspirator in so many different things we do at Grace. Without further ado, Bishop Paul Erickson, the Bishop of the Greater Milwaukee Synod, my bishop and my friend.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful day for a very important cause. And I want to also offer my gratitude and support for the work of the Wisconsin 7 as they are bringing about support and attention to the important environmental proposals that are contained in Governor Evers' budget. The time to act has passed, but the time to act is now, right? We could have done this years ago, but now is the time to do it today. We believe that one of the most important tenets of our Lutheran faith, as Pastor Jonathan mentioned, I think it's probably the same in many, many faith traditions, if not every faith tradition, and that is the call and the command to love our neighbor. But I want to challenge you all to imagine that our neighbor is not just our human neighbors. No, we are called to love all of our neighbors, all of creation, with the same love that God, the Creator, has for us, right? So these folks that are fasting are reminding us that the call to love our neighbor expands far and wide across the entire creation. We are to love and to care for everything that God has created, not out of duty, or out of fear, or out of political correctness, but out of gratitude, and to give honor to the one who made it, right? Because, as Dr. King reminded us in his letter from the Birmingham jail, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I'm going to argue that those words apply to our relationship with the environment as well. We cannot have a healthy, just, and equitable society unless we are also in right relationship with our creation. We cannot have a healthy world unless our world is healthy. It is all connected. Race, gender, gendered identity, gender expression. Economics, healthcare, education, and the climate. We ignore the well-being of our environment at our own peril, and we're already experiencing the disastrous effects of ignoring that for way too long. And we know that the first to suffer the consequences of climate change and climate peril are those who don't have the resources to insulate themselves from it, right? The people of color, the people who live on the margins, they are the first to experience the dramatic effects of climate change. So it's up to us to stand up, to be one, and to recognize that when one part of the body suffers, we all suffer together. And when one part of the body moves in the right direction, it is incumbent upon all of us to get in line and get in step and walk together towards a more just, sustainable, and holistic future. I'm so grateful for the work of the Wisconsin 7 and for all of those who are supporting their effort to bring about attention to the need for climate solutions in our budget and in our world. We have to turn away from the path that leads to destruction and death and turn towards the path that leads to wholeness and new life. It is possible. The time to act is now. The time to act for climate justice. Climate justice. Climate justice. Let's do it.
Let's hear it for Bishop Paul Erickson one more time. And how about when I say, what do you want? You say climate justice. What do you want?
Climate justice!
When do you want it?
Now!
What do you want?
Climate justice!
When do you want it?
Now!
Right now.
Right now!
All right, thank you so much. Give it up for yourselves, Milwaukee. Next up is another long-term warrior for justice, State Assemblyman Supreme More Umukunde. And before he was on the State Assembly, which we're so excited about just this past cycle, he was a county supervisor who spearheaded the Milwaukee City County Green New Deal Task Force, which came up with a long list of beautiful ways to transform our city. And so let's hear it for State Assemblyman Supreme More Umukunde.
All right.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Is it too muffled? Can y'all hear me? I've become used to talking with a mask on because some of my colleagues in Madison don't like to wear them. So, first and foremost, I want to ask an elder for permission to proceed. I see Pastor Elwanger is here. May I proceed, sir? Thank you. Thank you. So first and foremost, I want to thank the 7 individuals who are fasting right now, because that is sacrifice. And to go on a fast for 22 days is sacrifice. And they're sacrificing because they realize how important climate justice is. I remember when I first really started vocalizing this work, we were saying climate change, climate change, climate change. However, it was focusing on a negative. We got to focus on the positive and focus on the thing that's going to unite all of us, and that's climate justice.
All right.
And we got to have climate justice in everything that we do. So first and foremost, dealing with recognizing what we need, I'm a state assembly person. I sit on the committee on energy and utilities, and I fought to get on that committee. When I first got there and they were asking what we wanted our committee assignments to be, I fought tooth and nail to get on the committee on energy and utilities. And we're talking about how we deal with our energy, how we deal with our utilities, etc. But we're talking right now about the budget. And the budget right now is Governor Evers' budget, and we got to fight for the things that we want to stay in the budget, because at some point it will transition and become Speaker Voss and his party's budget. But we want to make sure that we have our Green Jobs Initiative. There's $1 million to help support green jobs and green job transition. We lost so many jobs during deindustrialization in the city of Milwaukee. We want to get some of those jobs back, but we got to be trained to do that work. We got to make sure that we know how to do that work, installing solar panels, building wind turbines, having people who do green audits on buildings once we require that work to be done. People have to be knowledgeable and know what we're doing. Secondly, we have to have the Office of Environmental Justice, because we got to make sure it's a heavy lift. We got to get everybody involved. People of color, people in Milwaukee, in urban areas, people in rural areas, people in native country, etc. We got to get everybody involved in this platform. And finally, we also have to get the Public Service Commission to do a study on the social impacts of carbon. We got to make sure that we know and understand what the social ills of carbon are. We got to require construction companies to do environmental impact studies whenever they do construction anywhere. We have to make sure that people have access to those studies so they can go to meetings and understand what's happening. I am proud to represent the people of the 17th Assembly District, and I was proud to represent the people of the 10th County District. However, I also have to be concerned with my other constituents, my constituents of land, air, and water as well. And I represent those individuals in that constituency as well. We also have to talk about on-bill financing as well. If you are a renter in a home and you need green updates on the place that you're renting from, we need to make sure that those on that bill, there is an assessment to help do those renovations on that building. And not only you, but the tenants that come after you can also benefit from those updates on that building. The energy efficiency, we talked about polar vortex. People always talk about, global warming, huh? Global warming. How's that global warming for you? Those polar vortexes that happen in the wintertime are also as a result of climate change. When you got 60, 70 degree below days, we got to crank that heat all the way up, and your bill is $300-400 more than it typically is. Who's going to be paying for that, especially if your home isn't insulated? We got to make sure that we have on-bill financing so we can do that work in homes that otherwise wouldn't get that work done. And so we got to make sure we're doing all of these things and make sure all these things are staying in the budget. We got to fight for what we want in our budget. So it's climate justice. Climate justice. Climate justice. Climate justice. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. You're my boss. I gotta come see you.
Thank you so much, Supreme. Can we hear it for Supreme one more time? Our next speaker will be County Supervisor Stephen Shea. He is a long-time activist in Milwaukee for just about every good cause. Whenever I see people marching with signs and flags, it seems like Stephen is out. And so can we hear it for Stephen as he comes up to share some words on what we're talking about.
Hello, I am County Supervisor Steve Shea. I am honored and humbled to be speaking in front of so many righteous activists, some of whom I know personally. Supreme, who up until just recently was my colleague on the county board. He's gone on to state legislature, and as far as working with those Republicans who refuse to wear masks, brother, you need combat pay, hazard pay. And I also want to mention Reverend Joseph Ellwanger. We've probably been doing this as long as anybody here. I believe you were on the Selma March, were you not?
That's right. All right.
Holy moly. You don't get any more activist cred than that. At any rate, I brought a sign today, and you may notice it says, "End all violence." Now, there's many kinds of violence. There's the obvious violence that we hear about on the news each night. There was a shooting outside of a bar at 2 a.m., or there was some road rage on the freeway. Shots were fired. But the most sinister violence of all is the one that doesn't get on the news every night, and that's the damage we're doing, the violence we're doing to this planet.
Come on.
Right now, the temperature on this planet has already increased by 2 degrees. Now, that sure may not sound like very much, but that's more than enough to create climate change all over this planet. We know, beyond doubt, there isn't any doubt to this. There is more carbon in our atmosphere right now than at any time in over 500,000 years. And the reason it is because of the burning of fossil fuels. The fossil fuel industry is a multi-billion dollar industry. They got unlimited money to throw around to buy politicians. I'm not one of them, thankfully. But there are powerful vested interests to keep the fossil fuel industry going. Now, they say, oh, it will cost too much. We can't do it. You know, green energy, it's too expensive. Baloney. I've been to Europe. They've got wind farms, solar farms everywhere. They got bicycles everywhere. They have mass transit, multiple kinds of mass transit in each city. Light rail, heavy rail, buses, you name it. They are already doing what we should be doing. And some countries, like Portugal, Denmark, expect to be carbon neutral by 2030. That's only 9 years away.
All right.
We are lagging far behind, and we can't wait another 30 years. The year 2050 is only 29 years away. It's closer than 1990 is behind us. We've only got this one chance to save this planet. There's no planet B, folks. We're already seeing the catastrophic effects. There had never been more than one level 5 hurricane in 1 year in recorded history. In 2017, we had 3 in 1 month. Puerto Rico still has not recovered. And talk about climate refugees. People from all over Puerto Rico moved to the United States because their homes were destroyed. And they still haven't moved back. And probably never, many of them never will. So, the situation is here. It's now. We can't put it off any longer. Species are already being sent to extinction. People are already being forced out of their homes. We need to save our planet. Thank you.
All right.
Let's hear it for Stephen Shea one more time. How about when I say green, you say future? Green.
Future.
Green.
Future.
Green.
Future.
Our next speaker has been in many ways the Wisconsin 8th. He has been pouring his soul into helping get the word